All right, so today we have Todd Tew, my attorney, fantastic friend for 20 years now. Wow, it's been a long time. How are you, sir?
Man, I'm doing great. How are you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great. You know, it's interesting because when I first moved to Texas, I remember my friend Nick Barros and I were both like, we met you at church and you told us you were a real estate attorney. I'm going like, my head's like spinning because I had moved to Texas wanting to start buying rental properties. And I remember sitting down with you, Nick and I sitting down with you. And I remember you saying, I like what you boys are doing. Like, I remember just the way you said it too. It was like, I like that you boys are like wanting to invest in real estate. Why is that? Why, at that time, properties were 80, 90,000 for the 322 Keller home. And of course, now we know that they've gone up a lot in value, but in 2002, what was your enthusiasm for young guys like Nick and I investing in real estate?
Well, okay. So just having met you guys and getting to know y'all's personality just a little bit, I felt like you were one of the most natural entrepreneurs I'd ever met. And I just felt like, there's no area on earth that is better for entrepreneurship than real estate.
Why?
Okay. Because you have to have the vision to see what can be where other people don't see it. I think that's just, it's the most natural entrepreneurial thing there ever was.
Yeah. I remember sitting there with you at a Mexican food place and I had my first tenant moving in and I was just nervous. Like, it was like, what if they don't pay rent? What if they don't, there's just so many sleepless nights early on when you're putting your livelihood on the line. I remember thinking, well, I guess if this fails, I could, go deliver pizzas to make up the money that I lost or whatever. But I think it was like a risk exposure that was maybe only suited for someone like me who was single at the time. I don't know, if I were married, I'd be a little bit more cautious about the decisions I was making. But, I remember those first few years of just tenants coming in and out. And, it was a hard time in the rental world. It wasn't super easy. It was difficult, but I remember just your encouragement, and wanting to stay with it. Now you own residential and you own commercial properties. Explain what's the difference there. And I'm going to show some pictures of some different things as you're talking as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I've been really blessed to work with guys who are that have your brain. And I'm the guy that can get things done. But I have to have a guy with the vision, with just the number sense to know when deals are going to work.
Yeah.
So what we do is we buy large parcels of property.
Okay.
We use the back sides or the non-access. Okay, so there's a perfect piece. You have access up front. You have perfect residential property in the back.
Okay.
And you plat it with the government authorities and entities such that you can use everything with good access up at the front is commercial. Everything at the back then, because you don't need that kind of access. You need reasonable access, but you don't need retail sort of access for residential. So that's exactly what we do.
So which one would you say to the beginning investor is a better one to get into? Is it better to own the residential piece of property or is it better to own the commercial piece of property?
Okay, depends on how deep they want to get into it. You can get into small commercial exposure, probably a little bit cheaper than you can in developing residential. Now, the way you did it was probably perfect on the residential side in terms of buying it, financing it, and then renting it. That probably is the easiest entry level, but also a really good one.
And so commercial properties, you buy this property. Let me show you another one here. And I toggle the screen back and forth. I want to keep their attention and keep them listening and looking at all this stuff, which is great. So, this is South Lake Town Center. Do you own South Lake Town Center? Is that you?
No, absolutely not. But there's always a place for, and I was going to, I was using that picture to illustrate the fact that government and public policy becomes so much a part of commercial real estate.
Okay.
And when I got to town, there was no town square, but there were developers, kind of like what my bunch does, kind of digging around Southlake, Keller, Colleyville, trying to propose this.
Yeah.
And in fact, they proposed this to Colleyville and to Keller before they did Southlake, and both of them told them, I don't think that's really a fit for our town.
Why?
That probably
Why
wouldn't
work.
work.
I mean, Southlake Town Center is like a beacon of capitalism. I mean, it's an incredible place. I mean, why didn't Colleyville and Keller see this vision?
Well, both of them, and particularly Keller, down along 377, they said, "Hey, we've already got kind of an old town section, so we don't think that this would work in our town." And that's just illustrative of the fact that, man, it just takes a lot of vision. You got to see what other people don't see, right, way before they see it, and be willing to take the risk. And just like you getting into it, that's the way it works. That's the way it has to be done.
So are you looking for the bigger developments, or do you have kind of smaller developments as well? What is kind of your bread and butter for commercial real estate?
Well, okay. So right now, with the residential boom being what it is, we're looking for smaller pieces, and we're looking for them further out. Whereas we used to be mostly Southlake based. Okay. And Northeast Tarrant County, the price of entry here has just gotten ridiculous.
Right.
It's gotten way too expensive. So we're looking way out in the hinterlands. We're looking out into Aledo, Weatherford, Brock, Peaster, way out into that area.
Are you looking for like good or just good value? Is that why?
That's what it is. That's what it is. You just don't want to get too deeply into the things, and to self-finance them rather than going through banks. We like a deal that's $1 to $3 to $5 million in, rather than a deal that's 10 to 15 in.
You got a group of. Are you the point man for the deal then, or are you an investor into it?
Okay, I'm an investor. I'm a real estate attorney, and my brother-in-law is a CPA.
Okay, that's a good combination right there.
No, it's just perfect.
It's like a dynamic duo here. Who's Robin? Who's Batman? This is great.
That's it. And then my father-in-law has been a developer for years and years, since like the early 70s. And so that man knows more than we will ever know, and has forgotten more than we'll ever know. But he's the guy. He's our Brian that can look at a deal, evaluate it just in seconds, and decide whether it's going to work or not.
So are you more buy it and then flip it, or are you buy it and hold it?
Okay, on commercial, great question. The play is almost always to develop the dirt, build a building, fill the building, just like these. You build it, you fill it with tenants, and then you sell it almost as quickly as you can. There are a lot of guys that'll hold them for, and it just depends on where you are financially. Right. A great long-term play is to fill it and then to use that rental income just forever. But we've had a lot of luck building them, filling them, and then selling them.
So, okay. So this one right here is off of Kimball Road. This is where your offices are at, north of 114 in Southlake. So you bought the land.
Yes.
You develop these small kind of office, like there's like maybe attorneys, accountants, physical therapy, or those kinds of professional type services.
That's exactly right. Yes, sir. And a lot of counselors for whatever reason in our area.
Okay. And so you buy it. I mean, you buy the land, you develop it, you fill it with tenants, you basically make it turnkey ready for somebody to come along who wants to buy it, and the tenants are all there, and they are just going to be inheriting a whole bunch of passive income. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yes.
Okay. And why not? What are the challenges to the person who's buying and holding it? I know a tenant, for instance, for me, they have to have a place to live. Like you got to live somewhere, and living in the house that you have is where you're going to live, right? But a business is subject to COVID. It's subject to, to downturns in the economy. It's subject to all sorts of things like that. Does that present a unique set of challenges to a commercial buy and hold investor?
Okay, exactly. Yes. Well diagnosed. So that's in 2020, we began selling those buildings just because, and we had, my father-in-law had 8 of these, identical to the one that you're looking at.
Wait. So eight of developments or 8 buildings in a development?
Okay, so we had, let's see, I guess we had 4 pods of these, but of the ones that you're looking at on the screen right now, we actually had 8 of these buildings in this one pod on Kimball Avenue in Southlake. And our plan was to hold them long-term or as far as we could out there, because they were a great passive income stream. You really didn't have to do that much to them. You like to give numbers, so if it's okay, I'll give some quick numbers.
Please give us numbers.
Okay, you see those huge power lines behind us?
Right here, okay, yeah.
Nobody wanted this dirt, and for years it had just sat here.
In Southlake? How is that possible? Southlake is like, it's the real estate stamped in gold. I mean, it's incredible.
So for whatever reason, I mean, all the development was done on this place. All of these little commercial pads were sitting there. They were perfect for the construction of just below 6,000 square foot buildings. And 6,000 feet is kind of magical, because in Capel and in Southlake and Colleyville, 6,000 feet triggers the necessity of putting in water sprinkling systems, water for fire abatement, which is extremely expensive. Blows up your construction costs like crazy, and you
want to keep this thing. You want to keep each of these separate buildings lower than 6,000 square feet in order to not have to put this huge cost of a sprinkler system in there. So instead of doing like one big building, you do a bunch of smaller buildings.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So each of them are drawn by the architects to about 5,995 or so, just as close as we can get it without going over. It's like the price is right. So, nonetheless, so you're exactly right. 2020 comes along, it hit. Okay, back to my numbers. So my father-in-law picked these lots up for about $300,000 a piece. Which was just dirt cheap, because just nobody wanted them.
And a lot is where all of these pods sit, or is it 300,000 for each one of the pods?
300,000 for each pad side.
Okay.
So for each of these buildings that you're looking at, it's 300 or so. Our construction cost was about $750,000 or so, for about 750,000 or so. So we were in at just a little over $1 million or so per little building. Well, early in 2020, before we could really tell what was going on, they were selling for about twice that. So we had held most of them for 3 to 4 years or so, and then could double our money, which was fantastic. But then 2020 hits, and we are having trouble holding on to tenants like crazy. They're breaking their leases. Their businesses are
going under.
They're going under, or going home or something, and are just deciding that they don't need the overhead. But so anyway, they are gone, and so then the play changed quickly. But thankfully, there were investors that were coming in from California and other places that would buy commercial properties. So we really didn't take too big a hit, and were able to get rid of them.
Wow! And so like the office that you have, it's got 2 offices in there. It's got a conference room between it. Is that kind of what all of these have? Is that kind of the way they're all structured?
That's kind of the way they were all structured. My father-in-law was real smart in the way that he laid them out, in that some were smaller than others. Some were about 800 square feet or so, and some of them were up to about 1,500 square feet. So he had a nice group that he could always lease. And just about any small business starting up, the smaller the better, and they grow into a bigger spot, and then you can knock through some walls and make it even bigger. But he liked having that kind of flexibility, and it really served us well.
So, like the unit you have for your law firm, what would that rent for example? 2 offices with a conference room, and what's the square footage of that exactly?
Okay, so we're kind of in that whole little corner from the black SUV right in front of that window, wrapping around the corner, and we're about 2,000 square feet or so. And if we weren't leasing it to ourselves, and that's kind of the nice thing, is we kept this one building, and we're leasing to ourselves with a preferable rate. But if this were a client, and it has been a client before, about $30 a square foot or so.
So
triple net would be what we would rent it for. So about, say it's 2,000 square feet, so about 6,000, 6,500 a month or so.
Okay. 6,500. And so you could see, like, I mean, obviously not all of the people in those buildings have that large, but in a downturn economy, $6,500 a month is going to be hurting if nothing coming, nothing coming in as well. Interesting. So this is one of the development. I mean, this development sounds like it's been, really successful for you. Where have some other developments? I mean, Southlake just feels like such an obvious now as we're looking back, like, duh, why didn't people see this? Who cares about the power lines? Businesses don't. I never even, when I went visit either, I never even noticed them. So I can see why houses wouldn't want to be there, but maybe not, businesses. But where else have you done a property where you've had success like this?
Well, okay. So, and that's one of the things I would tell just about anybody that wants in is over the years that I've been doing this for, I guess, 27 years or so now, Brian, I've seen some guys just every once in a while, a deal is a kill. But I've never seen anybody, I know so few people that have really failed at it, that they really stand out. So I would say that on just about any deal, you're going to get your money back. And every once in a while, you're absolutely going to cream it. So that's kind of the deal. Now, where my father-in-law particularly got us into some really good ones was residential real estate, going out and buying, Mr. and Ms. Smith's farm, taking it through the platting process and turning that 100 acres into 85 little residential lots. Like
in Lido or somewhere like that?
Absolutely. Now, it used to be in Southlake, but it's not anymore.
So you let's say you buy 100 acres in a Lido and you plow over the farmhouse. Oh no, right? And you do all the government things. What is the timeline from when you close on that farmhouse 100 acres to the point that you maybe your last house is built and you're completely out of that particular, what's the timeline?
Yeah. Okay. So that's almost the perfect size. And prior to the last couple of years, you'd look at a timeline of maybe 2 years from approval to all the way finished, built, all your lots are sold and you're gone.
2 years? That is so fast.
Well, it is. It is. Now, there are some that are longer holds, and if the economy slows, then that's the case. But right now, the answer for 2021 is more like 6 months from the time you buy the Smiths out to the time you are able to plat through the county. To the builders are just, I mean, the ferocity with which they attack lot purchases, because there just are no building lots.
Right.
They're gone. I mean, they're gone immediately. When you buy it from the Smiths, you go to your builders and tell them, hey, we've got 85 lots. How many do you want?
Is that because there's a mass exodus from California and people are coming here, or from Colorado or from Chicago or Boston seeking half an acre and a 4,700 square foot house with an entertainment center in it? And is that why they're doing it?
That's it. Yes, yes, and yes. No matter where they're coming from, that's what they want. And they want it right this minute.
Wow. It's so, the student that's sitting in my class whose head is probably spinning right now as they're listening to you, what is the process that you would advise them to say, hey, do this first to kind of put yourself in a position to maybe in 10 years when you're 28 years old or whatever, and you're wanting to go be a commercial real estate investor. What's the path?
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't think there's any wrong one. But what I think I would do is, is I'd find kind of a mid-sized bank over that direction, or splitting the middle like Bank of the West and Grapevine. I would get to know those guys because this is a business where you can't be risk averse and you can't be debt averse. You've got to work leverage and you've got to understand leverage. So, if I were going to tell a kid, how would you get into this mess? I would tell them, go to business school, know the numbers, be a Brian. Now that's the other thing. They're not going to have, I mean, you may have a kid or two that's just out there smart in terms of seeing the big picture. But anybody can do this as long as they manage risk and figure out how the numbers work. And that's the part that probably, well, that's what business school would help them about.
Do you worry about a 2007, 2008, 2009 returning in the real estate world? Like you buy this big development, you've got all this leverage that you've taken this debt to buy this particular thing, and then whoop, the music stops and you're holding the property and the economy just goes off a cliff because Lehman Brothers, goes under, or all the things that happened in 2007, 2008, 2009, APRs, or the adjustable rate mortgage, the arms go through the roof. I mean, all the craziness that happened with that kind of stuff. Do you ever worry about the music stopping and you're holding the bag of properties that can't be sold?
Okay, so the answer is no. And I'll tell you why.
I love the confidence.
So 2000, what they call the Great Recession,
right,
in 08, was nothing. I mean, we didn't miss a beat. Really? Yes. When I look at our numbers, there was no difference between 06 and 10 or so.
How is that possible, Todd Tew? That does not make any sense.
I know, but in North Texas, it didn't touch us at all. Now, the old guys like to laugh at us young guys. Well, and now I'm an old guy too, but us younger guys, and say, well, you've never lived through the bad days. And my old guys lived through the 80s, and the S&L crisis and all that kind of stuff, right, and Resolution Trust and how that all went. And even those guys found opportunities in the disaster. Okay. So the answer is no. It doesn't bother me at all. And the music will stop someday in North Texas, but it won't be. It'll be a couple of decades, I think.
You think? Wow. Yeah. Interesting. And it's funny. I had some of my highest numbers with Triumph during those years. It seemed like, people were like, things are terrible. And I'm like, actually, my numbers are way up. I don't, because of my friends in California, some of my friends in other places who were running sports camps, they were having all sorts of problems. I was like, North Texas feels like we're doing pretty good. Other than my adjustable rate mortgages going through the roof. Like that was, I was like, I better refinance these things because $900 payment to a $1,300 payment in a matter of a month is not going to work for passive income. So you have to change that all around. So, well, Todd, man, I appreciate you. Man, this has been fantastic. I may call you back in again to give us some expert advice on commercial real estate, on residential real estate. And we even talk about the fact that you're a lawyer. So it's like, you got all sorts of irons in the fire here. I love it. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Man, absolutely. Just a pleasure to get to see you today, Brian.